Here's a clock mechanism out of a 1900 vintage grandfather clock. It's a 9-tube clock made in 1900 by the Elliott company in England. This is the movement from Elliott. It was made for the Hardy and Hayes company in Pittsburgh. Hardy and Hayes was a very well-known upper-class jewelry and fine silver store in Pittsburgh, kind of the Tiffany's of that area. Moon phase dial has a really pretty pattern on it, a castle scene with a swan there and 2 moons and a nice battleship scene. Some little scratches there that I'm going to try to touch up. And the ticking you hear in the background is my time clock. International time recording clock that I restored several years ago. Entire mechanism is working in here, the whole clock punching mechanism. I drop it down in and punch in to work. There you go. Time to go to work. Here's a quickie view inside. You see all the gears and levers. Keep track of all the different days, 7 days of the week, and keeps track of the time. Back here you can set little cogs that determine at what time of the day you either get clocked in okay, which is blue, or you get clocked in tardy, which is red. Card goes in like so, and you punch the clock. What that did moving over was moving it to the proper day, because you have all your different days spread across here, and then the times. Alright, now back to our regularly scheduled restoration, the grandfather clock. Here's a look at the inner gear train before I put the front plate back on. The clock mechanism is divided into 3 sections. There are 3 weights. Each weight drives one of the sections. The section on the left here is for the hour gong. Gongs how many hours you have. And then the middle drive train is all for the clock itself and to actually keep time of minutes and hours. And on the right hand side, this whole drive train is all for the chimes. Lever selects between 2 different chime melodies by lifting right there and pushing the bar over so that a different set of pins, either this set of pins or the next one over, is lined up with the chime hammers. To step you through the operation of this clock, you can see that we have the minute hand, which is coming up on 1/4 the hour, 15 minutes past. As the minute hand turns, it's rotating this gear, which is then rotating this smaller gear. And you can see that there's some pins on this gear. There's actually 4 pins around in the circle. And there's a pin underneath this lever, and as this turns, it's going to lift this lever up. This lever comes over to here, it goes up, and that pin right there is going to push up on that lever. That's going to finally get to where it's lifting this little arm out of this tooth, and it's going to let this bar move to the left. And for the first 15 minutes, the position of where this sweeping arm is on this outer cog here is going to only let this bar move over by one indent. So we'll approach the 15-minute mark and you'll watch that get set up. Right there. And now what that's doing is getting ready to play the first quarter-hour chime. And what's holding it back right now is the fact that this gear has a little pin on it that's being held by that plate, and that plate comes through and is attached to this. So as we continue to get closer to our time of 15 minutes after the hour, this continues to raise until it falls off the pin. And as soon as it falls off the pin and lets go, that'll let this lever go free of that pin inside and let the wheel start to turn, and the weight is what's pulling on that gear, wanting to make it turn right now. This will rotate one revolution, and that one revolution is enough to let this go by just enough to play 1/4 hour on the chime bar. So here we go. Get right to the 15-minute mark. And that's it. Just lasted for a little while. Now I'll get set up here for half hour, and you'll see at the half-hour time we're going to get to the next pin, but this is going to rotate down one step, which that step will let this go further so that it's 2 teeth inward. So I'll get set up here. And now we're ready for 2 teeth. That is just going to let this rotate for longer, which will play more of the chimes. More of the melody will get played. So here we'll get right to half past the hour. You can see this drop off that pin, and that's what starts it. Getting right to the 30 mark, boom, drops off, and that lets this start. Alright, that was 2. Now as we get to the 3/4 hour mark, we're going to be on a different depth here because this is rotating, so it'll let this go farther and it'll be 3 positions over. So I'll rotate back, get my hands ready, and now you can see that I'm 3 positions in, and when I hit the 3/4 mark, I'm going to be allowed to go 3, which is letting that hit those hammers. And more of the melody is being played. Meanwhile, what's regulating the speed is this fan blade. As this fan turns, it has resistance with the air, so that's what slows this down and regulates the speed at which everything turns. Now on the left side we have the hour chime, and this has enough teeth to go from 1 hour gong to 12 hours worth of gongs. And what determines how many hours it's going to gong is by this rotating wheel right here with all these little steps at different depths. Depending on what hour it is, this will fall in, and as this rotates, each hour it falls into a deeper depth falls in farther because this moves just one notch every hour, and that allows this to move over one more tooth and get more and more teeth. So you'll see that as I get closer to this being ready to chime on the hour, the first thing that happens is this has to rotate to the next hour to get ready to play the right hour. So I'll go up here and watch this rotate. Alright, and then also now over here, same thing is going to happen where I let this go, but because it falls in all the way, because I'm at the shortest depth now here, this falling in all the way will not only set this up for 4 rotations, but it'll also will allow this pin to move all the way over and push down on this lever. And pushing down on that lever is going to come over and release this pin, which will allow this to come up, and I set up for my right number of hours. So let's see if we can watch all that occur. I'm going to get closer to the 9 o'clock hour and set up here and here. Alright, you notice that dropped down to 4 indentations, and it went far enough to push on this, lift up this, and get me set up for 9 hourly gongs. And we went over this far because I dropped in here this far to the 9 hour mark. And when I get right to 9 hours, first thing I do is start counting off 4 rotations, which is enough to play the entire full melody on the chime hammers in the back. And then as soon as this gets done, the last thing it does is come over here and let this start spinning. And now I gong the hours. That's going to rotate through 9 full times. And you can see that each time it's rotating, I'm gonging on the hour. We've got my fan regulating the speed. And that's it, 9 o'clock. With the front face back on, this pin, which is attached to the hour hand, that pin raises this arm twice per day, right around 11:30ish. And when it does, it rotates the moon phase wheel. This is a new moon coming out, and 15 days later, roughly, when you're at the 15, that's a full moon. You can see it takes 29 1/2 days. 29 1/2 days from new moon all the way to the end, one lunar cycle. The mechanism is now back in the case, and it's almost 2 o'clock.
For more information, visit GameRoomRepair.com.